Okay, we're recording. Hi folks, Oisin here with the Troubles podcast, and this is I was going to do two different videos, but I just said I'd do them both in one video. It's going to be a little bit of an update of news in Northern Ireland, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the book club. So we had our book club meeting there a couple of days ago, and the way I'll do it is we'll do a live meeting and a chat, and then that won't be recorded, and then I'll record my own thoughts about the book in this space, in recorded space. So if you can't make the meeting, we can do something like this where we can chat about it. And I do want to in the future do one for my American listeners, I guess, or you guys, because I understand like doing it around 9 p.m. Irish time is probably no good. You're probably working, or who knows. So we'll try and bang down a suitable time. I don't mind staying up late and doing one at 3 in the morning. So we'll jump straight into it anyway. All is going well with the podcast anyway. A lot of writing and preparing for this live show that's happening in 3 weeks. So a little bit nervous, but I think it'll be good fun. I think it'll be a nice intimate size, and I think one of my Patreons is from like Norway or Finland, and she's coming over for it, which is very humbling. It's very, very decent, very kind. So I will reply to your message, by the way. So me and Gerard are having a chat about it, and we'll see what kind of format the night's going to take. I'm going to try and figure out some way to record it, so if you're not based in Ireland, maybe you can access it. So I think the guy said it would have to go behind a paywall or something like that, but either way, maybe Patreons can get it, or we'll figure out some way of having it, because I'm looking forward to chatting to Gerard. She's a great guy. So, okay, enough waffling. Let's jump into news in Northern Ireland. There's basically two ones I wanted to cover today. And one is from about 2 weeks ago, and one of them is quite recent, in the past couple of days. So I've talked about it before a few times, but the Northern Irish Legacy Bill is the bill that was brought forward by the UK government that was essentially closing off the avenue for cases against, legacy cases, or cases that Her Royal Majesty's people, military people, were charged with. So if you're looking at the likes of Bloody Sunday, and you're looking at like these significant events that happened during the Troubles years and years ago, this bill that was introduced by the British government is essentially saying you can no longer come after us for what we did. We have to draw a line under it, and we can't continue this, how do they see it, like just non-stop legacy cases, case after case after case after case. You can see their perspective, but in reality it was quite a disgusting thing to do, because I think anyone who's had a father killed, or a brother or sister killed, or themselves were affected, they were injured in an attack, everybody deserves to have their day in court, or everyone deserves to have some sort of retribution, be it an apology, be it monetary, or I think a lot of these people just want to see the person who shot the gun, who's still alive, have a court say, yes, you did do this, and this was wrong. So it was very upsetting for a lot of people in Northern Ireland, and it actually passed into law. It passed into law in September, so the Legacy Bill went ahead. But as of 2 weeks ago now, the Irish government has decided to challenge the British government on the, on this bill, basically. They don't think this bill, They don't think this bill goes in line with the European Convention for Human Rights, basically. So, there was an interesting point I have on my computer here somewhere. Let's see. So it came into UK law in September 23. People were afraid it was going to breach human rights law, and granting amnesties, that are incompatible with a country's obligation to have a way for unnatural deaths and allegations of torture to be investigated. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Sorry, there was one point I highlighted somewhere, but I can't seem to find it. But so the Irish Taoiseach Micheál Martin is bringing the case forward, and then the response from the British was a little bit we're disappointed by this, especially at this trying time, and we have the provisions in place for a case such as this. We've prepared for this, basically. I'm assuming the Irish government has to look out for its people in Northern Ireland who see Ireland as their own country, basically, or the Irish people up there. So it's understandable why the Irish government is doing what they're doing. I don't really know what the outcome is going to be, but it'll be an interesting case to watch and see how it develops over the next year. So I will keep you updated. The second little bit of information that happened this week is, which I did not even know he was alive, but basically Sir Frank Kitson died. How old was he? Like 82? No, 97. Okay, 97. So for those of you who don't know, do I have his book here? Frank Kitson is one of the people who is commonly kind of deemed the man who, how do you describe him? He was the man behind counterintelligence operations in Northern Ireland, based on his experiences with the Mau Mau population in Kenya. And many believe that Kitson was the one who, how do you even describe, basically like the idea of false flag operations and all of this sort of stuff, are figuring out a way to get the Irish public angry, so that there'd be a reason for the army to come in and this sort of stuff. So it's really interesting because I have his obituary from a number of different locations, like a number of different news websites, and like, of course, you know, there's some ones that are very, very down the middle, and then when you go to the likes of, you know, irishnews.com, notorious British Army General Frank Kitson, blamed for deplorable actions at the start of the Troubles, dies. So many view him as a hate figure. Other people believe that he was made a scapegoat for the actions of the British government. They were like, well, just everything can be pinned on Kitson. Nothing ever happened to him. He was part of, I don't know how much of his role played out throughout the Troubles, but I know he was definitely a significant character in the early 1970s. I think specifically around Bloody Sunday. So yeah, he did actually face legal action by the victims. Okay, maybe he might merit an episode at some stage. But yes, he was basically a hate figure for nationalists, and there was a lot of reports that like there'll be nobody in Derry mourning his loss today and this sort of stuff. So I think a very interesting. I can't believe, I just didn't know he was even alive, but I'd imagine he stayed very quiet in his later life, I guess. So yeah, he was in charge of the first. Sorry, let's have a look here. Yeah, in charge of the 1st Battalion who carried out Bloody Sunday and the Ballymurphy massacre. So yeah, the 1st Battalion who carried out these things, they had the nickname Kitson's Private Army. So they were, whether they were doing his bidding or not, it's unclear, but it might merit an episode. I have his book about counterinsurgency and operations, but it's a really long, really boring book. So again, I've always thought about doing an episode on Kitson and whether there is proof in a lot of the allegations against him, that he was literally trying to, you know, convince the population to attack in order for them to for the army to react. Basically, that's how I view it now. That could be incorrect. But anyway, that's enough of that. That's the two kind of most significant news pieces that have come out of Northern Ireland in the past month, or in the past 2 weeks, I guess. And now we're going to jump into the book club. So for those of you who don't know, I've started a book club that in between seasons, and maybe during seasons, I'll see how busy I am, I'm going to recommend a book, show you where you can buy the book. I'm going to read it, and then after about a month we're going to maybe all sit down and have a chat about it. So yeah, like I said, we met up 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago, and we had a really interesting chat. And Clara, thank you for coming back for a second time. So funnily enough, we actually had Clara there, and it turns out Clara did the Spanish translation for this book. So if anybody knows the book fairly intimately, it'll be the person who kind of scoured through it for it to be published in the Spanish language. Yeah, so the book was called Trespasses by Louise Kennedy, who is from Mayo. Is she from Mayo? Or Northern Ireland? Probably Northern Ireland, but lives in Mayo. I think I'm mixed up here. But it was the first time we did fiction. So this is the second book we've done. The first book was more of an account. That was the Linen Triangle. An account of all the killings and bombings that had happened in the past while in this one specific area. Whereas Trespasses was more a novel, basically, a work of fiction set in 1974, but actually in the heart of Northern Ireland during the Troubles. So the story being told is fictitious, but all of the world building and all of the incidents that happened in Northern Ireland really happened. So it followed this woman, Kusla. My brain is not working today. It followed this woman, Kusla, who was kind of a middle class Catholic teacher who, spoilers by the way, because if you don't continue if you plan on reading the book, but basically she begins an affair with an older Protestant man, Michael. And Michael was kind of an interesting character in the sense that, like, much older now, like maybe 50s, I think, and Kushla's early 20s. And Michael was kind of an oddity in the sense that he was like a barrister or a solicitor or whatever, and he represented a lot of Republicans who were accused of membership to the IRA or attacks and this sort of thing. So yeah, a lot of conflicting things in the sense that, like, the romance in the book is very well written, and the way she describes and how she feels about him and everything is it's very well written, but at the same time you have to, and you really feel a lot of emotions for Kushla, but at the same time this guy Michael is married, he's got a sick wife, he's got a teenage son, and in a way, now again, this is kind of my feelings now, so this is take this with a pinch of salt. But in a way, they're two kind of shitty people. They're two good people at their heart. Kushla's a primary school teacher. She looks after her kids very well. Michael obviously is doing a good job of what he does, but they make a decision that kind of can be really damaging. So Michael could potentially lose, his wife and his kids, but at the same time, Kushla, in 1974, having an affair with an older married man from a different faith, the Protestant faith, that's a big thing. And that led to kind of catastrophic consequences in a way. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book. This helped get me back into reading a little bit, in the sense that I stopped trying to look for pages and I'll do 20 pages. I just really enjoyed as it kept going. And Kushla has an alcoholic mother called Gina, and it feels a lot of the time that Kushla basically is the mother. She has to be the mother for her mother. And yeah, it's a relatable thing in the sense that everyone knows, everyone has had that experience, I guess, or it's been written about a lot, let's just put it that way, of people who have kind of, become the parent to their own parent, basically. Or their parent becomes the child. So, yeah, so basically, I don't know if I'm narrating. I'm sure I'll keep going anyway in case no one has read the book. We have Kushla, she falls in love with Michael. Kushla has her own little primary school that she is a teacher at, and there she meets one of her kids in her class is called Davy, he's a kid who comes from quite a poor Republican area, basically. Except Davy's mother was originally Protestant, and she converted to Catholicism to marry in. So they were kind of the family that were, there was a Protestant in them, So they'd get graffiti in their house or whatever, and even the principal or the priest would treat Davy bad. It's I think 7-year-old boy, because his mother was a Protestant. So it kind of just really brought home how it was always a relevant thing. It was always an issue, for this innocent young kid, Davy, because his mom was a Protestant. So I read a review of the book that said this book will wreck you. And for the whole time I was like, oh Jesus, Davy's gonna get blown up in a car bomb or something. But yeah, what actually happened was a little bit of a curveball. Well, not really, but it was a little bit of a curveball. Let's just see. I have my notes about the book here. I'm just checking. Oh yeah, I really liked that. The men at the bar were speaking about World War II. Because again, Kushla's brother, Eamon, owned a bar, and Kushla would do shifts at the bar, and that's where she met Michael. He came in, and there was all this romance and all this sort of stuff. The tension was palpable. But one of the lines that I liked was she heard men speaking at the bar, and they were talking about World War II. That war could be talked about, but this one that was ongoing was unspeakable. There was things that just couldn't be said, which I really liked. But yeah, so then you're kind of thinking well, what was Michael doing? Was he in love with Kushla? But it's revealed later on that he's had many affairs. And also the fact Kushla would come over for dinner parties with Michael's friends and teach them Irish. And it kind of felt like she was his little project or something. It felt that he was the savior of the... I don't know, he didn't do anything that necessarily, apart from cheating on his wife, made him out to be a bit of a nasty character. But the fact that he was interested in her, was he interested in her because she was Irish, or of the Catholic faith? Or was he just a horn dog? Probably he was just a horn dog. But yeah, so anyway, so Davy, the young boy, has the brother Eamon, Davy's brother is Tommy, who's a young fella who kind of has a crush on Kushla, which I clocked early on, the way they were writing about when she would visit the house and kind of help out a little bit, and the way Tommy would talk to her, and it was a bit, yeah, it was a bit, there was obviously something there in it, but I was just going through the book, so there was these kind of little pressures. There's the family here, there's Kushla and her family, and then there's obviously Michael's family, and then it just was a couple of 30 pages off the book or something, off the end of the book, and I just opened it and I was like, oh, Michael's dead, because it was, her mom was drunk in the pub, and she's like, he was such a nice man, and Kushla was just like, what? So Michael ended up being shot dead by a Republican, and that kind of was, yeah, well, that was kind of the big twist in the book. I think no one saw it. Well, I don't know anyone see. I think the three of us who were reading it or whatever, the ones we were chatting about the book, we sensed obviously something is going to happen. I thought it was going to happen to Davy. It was just unclear what would happen at that point during the book, and it was Michael getting killed basically. and this was kind of the catalyst that caused Kusha's life to completely unravel, because then she was kind of, because they'd had all these secret liaisons, Kusha became, they just had her in for an interview basically. They proved that, the police had proof that Kusha had been sleeping with him, and again, a young woman in 1974 Ireland sleeping with a married man. You know, it's reputation destroying, I guess, in a way. Somebody, who was it that said it? Clara said that somebody else who read the book brought up a really interesting point, that, again, there's no answers when it comes to a book, but a lot of, you know, we have Tommy, as it turns out, killed Michael. Kusha thought it was her fault, but in reality, Tommy, it was just one of those random wanton things. Tommy was working in Michael's house, saw that he was a barrister, he said, okay, I can take out an easy target for the IRA, basically, and that was it. But there was one person who had a reading of it that said, in this book, there's a lot of references to Michael kind of defending IRA Republicans, or, you know, who were accused of doing terrible things to the police service or the army. So there was one reading of it that Clara brought up, that was Michael killed by the guards, by the you know, the police services of Northern Ireland. I didn't really get that, but I could see there was a lot of hostility towards the security services toward Michael. But I didn't really get that reading of it. But I thought it's open ended enough that I think it could potentially be a goer, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it was, and then Kusha's life just crumbled, you know. Then it turns out, like, once it had been revealed what Kusha had been doing, and then they'd harboured, then Tommy's family were targeted and kicked out of their home because Tommy was accused of being the shooter, basically. And that's Tommy, Davey, and his parents. Then Kusha and Gina took them in, which was, you don't do that, because then you're covered with this sort of stain. And it culminated in Eamon's bar getting burnt down, and Eamon was like, well, that's it, we're heading to the Republic. And what's the line? It's a very grabby and rude, like, because Eamon comes across quite gruff in it, I guess, but he's like, you're fucking coming with us to Kusha to bring her down to the Republic, away from this, basically. And I really enjoyed the book. I really enjoyed the last 2 pages, I think the epilogue, where a significantly older Kusha meets Davy, and she still feels a bit of guilt about how she still feels responsible for what happened to Davy. He ended up in the foster care system and all this sort of stuff. But I just thought it was a very well written book that you don't feel the pages fly past. You kind of want to know what's happening. You want to know what's coming next. And when the twist came, that was kind of when I realised, oh crap, I'm finishing this book right now. Because I just was like, okay, I have to find out what transpires here. So anyway, I think I'm going to finish up. The new book, I will be releasing the information about it in the coming week. And then I'll give much more notice this time, because last time I gave only 1 day's notice. I'm about to go to South Africa with my dad on a trip, so it all kind of crushed in together at the last second. So this time we'll announce the book, probably say a month. I might even choose a date a month in advance, and we'll keep that date as the book chat. So that means you can prepare for it long in advance, basically. And if there are Americans who would like me to try for an American slot, say like 3 a.m. Irish time, maybe 6 p.m. American time, we can work with that too. So just let me know. Apart from that, thank you for being here, and I hope you guys have a great new year, and I'll be in touch.